Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to 2023, and this is the first episode of Watch Out. I'm your host, Drew Pizzulo, and today I actually want to talk about one of the biggest trends that happened in 2022. Last year, we opened up the year by going out into the upper dimensions of the spirit world when my sister joined us for this show. This year, we're going to open up the year by going into outer space. And the only brand who has brought us there with this new series is none other than Swatch. Okay, so not really a company I had thought I was going to review, but once I did some more research about this new Swatch line that really took the watch industry by storm last year and how it compares to the original dynamic of what we're going to be talking about. So without further ado, I will show you. The series that we're going to be talking about is the Swatch Speedmaster MOONSWATCH series. Okay, and as you can see, this is a series of a variety of different colors. There are 10, I believe, in all, and basically, what they've basically done here is given a watch for each of the planets, each of the 9 planets, and really 8 planets because they don't have one for Earth, but they have one for the Sun and the Moon, which make up the solar system, which brings you to this outer space MOONSWATCH series. Okay, and it's really interesting because Swatch owns it is the parent brand to Omega, okay? And obviously Omega is part of the Swatch group. So what's really interesting here is the fact that Swatch took the Omega name, put it on their company, their head company brand, and marketed that as an Omega Swatch series. It starts getting confusing from there. So normally brands don't do knockoffs of each other. But when you're owned by the parent company and the parent company wants to make something for the masses that's affordable, this is what can happen and this is what did happen. Obviously, it's a knockoff of the Omega Speedmaster. Now, I happen to have one right here. This is mine, and this is the 18 karat gold version with the blue face. And there's many, many, many different versions of the Omega Speedmaster that everybody knows and loves, including the one that went to the moon in the Outer Space series. And we all know the Omega 11, all the historical things with NASA and everything to do with the space program came from Omega. So as you can see, you have the Omega Speedmaster here. But what Swatch decided to do is take its popularity and put it into their parent brand, which is not known for being very high-end. It's a very affordable brand, probably up to about $250 retail. And they took the same look and the same style of the Seamaster, used Omega's name and then put theirs under it. Okay, so this is bigger versions, so you can see what I'm talking about, because I don't have one of the actual watches with me outside of the real Speedmaster. So again, you can see what Swatch wanted to do here. Now, there's several things you gotta talk about when you're talking about this watch. Number one, let's talk about the cost. As a regular Seamaster, which obviously, like I said, I have right here, the normal price point for a regular Seamaster these days goes anywhere between $2,000 and $6,000, depending on if you buy them pre-owned or new. So, again, the price point is much higher. The retail price point on these suckers was about $280 that you could go to one of the Swatch stores and buy these. And you're saying, well, gee, that's 10% of, $2,800. Yes, it is. And there are reasons for that. Number one, the real Speedmaster is an automatic movement. These watches, which again represent all the planets and the moon and the sun, depending on which one you want, they are quartz battery powered watches, okay, using the cheapest Swiss movement you can possibly get in the industry. Even though it is still technically Swiss made, they're putting it in their watch again as a cost cutting measure. The real Omega Speedmaster is stainless steel or 18 karat gold. Sometimes you may even find it in titanium. These watches, as you can tell, and it's only really the watch head, these are all plastic. The real Omega Speedmaster has a sapphire crystal, so it can shatter but it can't scratch. These watches by Swatch are, in fact, plastic crystals which scratch quite easily. So you can see the cost-cutting measures. The real Speedmasters, a lot of them have dates, but not necessarily the Moon series. These you will not find a date with. Okay, so this series is totally different. Whereas you look at, as I said before, when you're looking at the actual band of the watch, the real Speedmaster, again, is going to be stainless steel or yellow gold. Whereas this series of the model by Swatch is a very, very cheap plastic Velcro band. So if you add all of these differences up, what you have here are watches that you could clearly see why they're cutting costs, because they want to appeal to the masses. And a lot of people can't afford watches that are $2,000 to $6,000, especially in this economic environment that we're so wonderfully in. But they can afford something that's around $250 to $280 that has the same look from an outside view of the Omega Speedmaster, which is one of the most iconic watches in wristwatch history. So they're really knocking off themselves. Not something I've really ever seen done to this magnitude. And I guess they were saying to themselves, well, we're tired of the replica market, knocking us off, so it would be better to use the parent company to make a knockoff of our own self, which is Omega, use the Omega name since it's under the Swatch group, and take those watches and resell them at 1/10 of the price, and people can have the look, and yet they still get a lot of the profitability of people ordering those watches. Now, what they didn't account for was how popular they were going to be. In 2022, when this was released, there were thousands and thousands of people and watch fanatics that stormed the stores upon its release, and these poor stores only had maybe about 100 to sell because they had really, in some ways, botched the rollout. They didn't give enough quantity, which drove the secondary market to a ridiculous amount. All of a sudden, you had, these types of watches, and everybody had their own favorite color. They had their own favorite planet. They had everything. These watches were going for upwards of $1,500 to $2,000. That's as much as some of the real ones. I mean, it's absolutely insane considering the only thing that you're buying is a collector's edition that has cut every corner it possibly could to make it as cheap as it possibly could. It's not like these are even water resistant. All right, the water resistant on these are maybe 1 ATM. I'm hearing on some sites 3, but it's more likely 1. And again, it does have the chronograph feature, which does come in handy if you're going to do any type of speed timing. That does work, and these are functional pieces of the watch. But outside of that, like I said, you're buying plastic as opposed to steel or gold or anything else that the Speedmaster has traditionally come in with. But you are buying it at 1/10 of the price. So, is it worth it? That's a tough call. It depends on who you are and what type of watch you desire. If it's something that you can afford very easily and you're looking on a cost-cutting budget and you just want the look of the Omega, you don't want the price tag of the Omega, it makes sense, I guess, for you. And if you're any type of space enthusiast, and like say for instance, the coolest one out of them all is actually the Saturn, because you can actually see Saturn on there. That worked Saturn into the dial, whereas they didn't do that with any of the other planets. So that's probably the coolest one out of them all. So if you're an astronomy buff, or you just want something to wear, and then you want a collector's edition of something that was coming out that everybody flocked to because of the uniqueness of knocking off their own brand, yeah, I guess it would be worth it. If you're a watch enthusiast who wants an automatic watch with the real stuff and the prestige and the market factor of Omega, no, it's not going to float your boat, especially when you have the real one. It's the difference between playing with something real and playing with something that's is not real. Even though it is, because it's made by Swatch, which is the parent company of Omega. So it has its ups, it has its downs. I've heard a lot of reports the straps totally suck, so if you decide to go that route, then I would definitely suggest you changing out the strap, because the last thing you want is to have Omega on one side and then Swatch on the other one, especially if the strap falls apart within a couple of months. So again, it's confusing, number one, and number two, I would probably just put a rubber band on it. I wouldn't even waste my time putting a stainless steel band on a plastic watch. That just doesn't really make too much sense. I would probably go with rubber from that aspect of it. But then again, usually people use rubber watches, rubber bands for diving, and you can't do that with this. So I don't know. It's very confusing. I was very confused when I first saw it. I looked on eBay today, and the cheapest one was going for $400 or $500, which still tells me that even in 2023, Swatch has still not gotten its act together with the production of these, and they're still going for twice the amount they should when the retail price is at $280, and they're still going for $500 on eBay. Obviously, it's better. It's off the $1,500 high it used to be at, but it's not where it should be, which is twice MSRP. So a lot of this is nuts. But it was a fad, like Beanie Babies. It was, a big craze of 2022. And whether it's Pokemon cards or Beanie Babies or any of the other fads that were around, you have it. It's here. It's not going anywhere. I'm sure they're making a lot of money off it. It's brought a lot of people back to interest in watches, especially something that's affordable in this type of marketplace. So there's good aspects to it and there's bad aspects to it. Is it something I will be adding to my collection? No, I couldn't say I could add this to my collection. Could I see people wanting to add it to their collection? Yes, for different types of reasons. But I wanted to give you an overall view on the difference between the MOONSWATCH edition that Swatch has out and the real version, which obviously has been in Omega's product line for decades. So again, thanks guys for joining me on this episode of Watch Out, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.